would not have wanted Erika it would not have been my advice for Erika in a stage of grieving to go from being the widow to being the CEO and the chairman of the company. If I was running the company, I would have said, let's put in place an interim CEO, right? Someone below Justin Strife, I think, was the COO. I would have put in an interim CEO and allowed people to figure things out. Because it is a true statement that there's two things happening here. There's a widow, and then there is the chairman and the CEO, and that person, no matter what, is going to have to catch heat for any decisions the business is making. That's just the reality of the way the world works. When you're a CEO and you're a boss, if a mistake is made, doesn't matter whether you did it, whether you said it, whether you tweeted it, it's going to come down on you. And she has assumed that role, okay? So criticisms pertaining to anything at Turning Point USA that are being directed at Erika are fair. Obviously, they are fair if they are directed about Turning Point USA and their actions. The second thing that I would say, and again, this is as unsolicited advice, so she's free to throw it out.
It's like, lady, didn't your husband just get his face blown off like 2 seconds ago? And not to be insensitive about it, but everyone's thinking it. No one wants to be the asshole. No one wants to say it. Everyone's thinking it. Everyone was thinking it when she gave the first speech. Everyone was definitely thinking it at the memorial. Nobody wants to say it because it's inappropriate. It's insensitive. I am the troll, right? So I'll be the one to say it. I think it's super inappropriate. I think it's inappropriate. I think it's weird. It's bizarre. Something is off there, and I don't like it.
Candace Owens didn't ease into the topic. She went straight for the point that most public figures would avoid at all costs. She openly questioned Erika Kirk's reaction to her husband Charlie's death. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't coded. Candace said what thousands were whispering but no one with a platform had dared to say out loud. Why did Erika seem so calm, so composed, and so accepting instead of demanding answers?
But in the entire issue and the energy right now is that people, irrespective of what's happening on paper, don't believe the story. They don't believe the story. And you are, and of course this is only a snippet of the interview, so I'm sure more will be said here, but I'm getting that you have seen the case, you think it's a solid case, she thinks it's a solid case at least, and is saying, show everybody what you have so they can see true evil. Within her capacity of chairman and CEO of Turning Point USA, they could be more transparent about what happened that day. People don't like the stuff that they've seen about Mikey McCoy. They don't like what they've seen about Rob McCoy. They don't like the history of Rob and Mikey McCoy and their involvement here. They don't like the video of Terrell. They don't believe what time text messages were sent or when the phone calls took place. You know, Rob McCoy is lying. In the areas that you can control the transparency, I think doing that would be beneficial to Turning Point USA, because I don't think Turning Point USA is going to survive if they continue down this path of, you know, Tyler Boyer late night tweeting at donors as he did over the weekend. I think he directed his fire at like John Mappin and Arena Mappin, called John Mappin a loser. I don't think that that's the correct messaging to come out of Turning Point USA.
Candace argued that in most tragic situations, especially when a spouse dies under unclear or shocking circumstances, the surviving partner is the first person pushing for transparency and accountability. Yet, in this case, Erika wasn't calling for deeper investigation, wasn't applying pressure, and wasn't challenging the narrative being presented.
But they're doing the Super Bowl commentators with the headsets on, doing a media table. They're selling merch, registering voters. They got pyrotechnics. Is this WrestleMania or is this a funeral? Like, what are we doing here? And then, the day after the funeral, I'm getting 500 texts and emails. Erika Kirk here. I miss him. Every time I blink, every beat of my heart. Make sure to donate. $5, $15, $25. It's like, okay. Then they're doing a show. Did you see the show today? And so prescient. I said it last night. I said, I'm getting like a fake vibe. Something's off there. And people say, well, everybody grieves differently. Yeah, I don't know how much mileage we can get out of that one anymore. Something's not right there. Very bizarre, weird vibe there. And did you see the show? Erika hosted the Charlie Kirk show this afternoon, and she's like, she looks like she's over the moon. She's happy as a clam. And again, who am I to judge? Everybody grieves differently. She's a very devout Christian. Some people say maybe that's just strength, that's resolve. I don't know. It's one thing if your husband dies, period. It's another thing if your husband dies at age 31, unexpectedly. It's another thing if your 31-year-old husband unexpectedly dies because he gets publicly executed with blood gushing out in front of thousands of people screaming and running away. That's like something that's altogether different.
To Candace, that silence wasn't strength, it was concerning. The internet split instantly. Half of social media said Candace crossed a line by criticizing a grieving widow and should have shown empathy. The other half said Candace was simply voicing what didn't add up. Screenshots, reaction videos, and debates spread quickly, with people arguing whether Candace was exposing a truth others were too scared to touch or attacking a woman during her most vulnerable moment. Candace stood firm. She doubled down, saying her comments weren't random or cruel. They came from a place of suspicion, a belief that something wasn't right and that Erika's behavior didn't match what most people would expect from a widow in search of the truth. But Candace's public comments didn't come out of thin air. There was a trigger behind them, and that trigger was a leaked group chat that flipped the entire situation upside down. Before the leak, most people assumed everyone close to Charlie was united in grief and handling things privately. Once that screenshot hit the internet, that illusion cracked instantly. Candace revealed that she had access to a private group conversation involving key people connected to Charlie. According to her, the screenshot she eventually referenced on her show was real and came from that chat. She claimed she originally shared it discreetly with a few individuals in positions of authority because she thought it contained information worth reviewing, not something to blast online. But once it left her hands, the image spread faster than anyone expected. The leak showed messages that hinted at disagreements, withheld details, and private concerns that didn't match the polished public statements being made. For many people, this was the first sign that behind the scenes, not everyone was aligned. And the moment the screenshot became public, social media turned into a giant investigation board. People began analyzing every word, interpreting tone, and questioning why this information wasn't openly discussed from the start. Supporters said the leak justified Candace's decision to speak out, claiming she wasn't attacking Erika without cause, but responding to inconsistencies that deserved attention. Critics, however, accused Candace of escalating a sensitive situation that should have remained private. Either way, the leak changed everything. It shifted the conversation from, "Is Candace being too harsh?" to, "Wait, why was this hidden from the public?" If the leak shook the room, Joe Rogan's involvement blew the doors off completely.
Up in a way that, like, okay, you're saying something that's actually factually inaccurate,
right,
according to the narrative. Now, let's be real clear. I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird shit going on. He's on the roof. He shoots. He jumps from the roof. He jumps down 14 feet.
Yeah, we saw didn't they have video of him jump? Somebody had a cell phone video of him jumping.
There's
down,
a video
right?
of him jumping. So this guy, whoever it is, jumps off of the roof and lands, whether or not he's even the guy who shot him. Maybe he thought he was going to shoot him. Maybe he's a patsy. Maybe he did it.
I feel like he's a plant. Did you see the video? Did you see the person doing the investigating on his mom's Facebook?
No.
You haven't seen this? Have you seen that, Jamie? Some dude online.
His mom's got a weird Facebook. I spill coffee.
Very trippy. It doesn't make any sense. Like, the more they keep looking into it, the more they're like, this doesn't feel like a real... It feels super fabricated.
But here's the thing. Just like I was talking about when people are arguing on social media, it's all part of the plan. If you want things to be...
I wanted it so bad. Buckets.
If you want people to lose all faith that anyone is going to solve anything.
Yeah.
You add a bunch of, if you're going to kill a guy, you add a bunch of other wacky shit that doesn't make any sense and you spam it out there at the same time. You leave a gun that didn't do it out in the woods. You do a bunch of shit like that.
You have an old man put his dick out and yell, I did it, I did it.
Yeah, you get some kid who has a boyfriend who's a furry, and you
boyfriend
talk
is a
to him on
furry?
Discord. I think he's a furry.
Is
I
that
don't want to disrespect.
I don't know if that's a
He's
real
definitely
thing. Is that?
His boyfriend's definitely a guy who became a girl.
And wears furry stuff.
I think they do furry sex. Or furry games. Excuse me. My apologies. I don't want to disrespect the furry sex
Shout out
or
to the
furry
furry
game community.
Yeah.
Bro, shout out to the furries because me and Duncan.
Once Joe addressed the situation on his podcast, the conversation jumped from political circles into mainstream pop culture, and that's when the story stopped being online drama and turned into a national talking point. Joe didn't make any wild accusations or claim to know the full truth. Instead, he did what he's known for, asking the questions that millions of people were already thinking but didn't feel allowed to say publicly. On air, Joe questioned the narrative surrounding Charlie's death and pointed out that several details being presented didn't seem to align. He mentioned how uncomfortable it felt that certain information was being released in fragments, rather than clearly and transparently. Joe's tone wasn't hostile, it was curious, analytical, and quietly skeptical. And that was enough. Because Joe's audience isn't small. When he raises an eyebrow, the internet starts digging. Clips of Joe's comments spread across TikTok, Instagram, and X within minutes. People clipped and captioned his reactions, adding their own theories and side comments. Viewers said if someone as mainstream and platform conscious as Joe Rogan was questioning the situation, then it clearly wasn't just conspiracy talk anymore. The narrative shifted overnight. What had been treated as a niche conversation among political commentators instantly became a topic discussed in barbershops, gyms, college campuses, and group chats everywhere. Some people praised Joe for giving the conversation legitimacy. Others felt he was pouring fuel on an already emotional fire. But one thing was undeniable. After Joe Rogan stepped in, silence was no longer an option for anyone involved. But the moment that truly intensified speculation was the discussion around the timeline, and this is where things got messy fast. Online researchers, fans, and commentators began comparing statements, timestamps, and media reports, and many noticed something they couldn't ignore. According to what Erika shared publicly, she received a call informing her that Charlie was in trouble. But when people lined that up with the reported time of the incident, they claimed the call appeared to have come before the timeline the public was given. Now, to be fair, there are reasonable explanations. Time zone confusion, emotional memory gaps, or reporting errors can easily create misunderstandings. But once this detail hit social media, nuance didn't stand a chance. People began treating the timing discrepancy as a red flag that demanded answers. Screenshots circulated, side-by-side timeline breakdowns went viral, and creators began posting videos highlighting the potential inconsistency with captions like, "Somebody explain this." For many viewers, the issue wasn't just the timing itself, it was the lack of clear clarification. If the difference was simply due to time zones or a miscommunication, critics argued it should have been clarified immediately to stop rumors from spreading. Instead, the silence around the discrepancy made it feel even more suspicious to those already questioning the narrative. Supporters of Erika pushed back, saying grief can distort memory, and expecting perfect accuracy from someone in shock is unreasonable. Others argued that when a situation is this public and emotionally charged, clarity should be a priority, especially if confusion is fueling speculation. Regardless of which side people were on, the timeline question cracked open a new layer of doubt, and once that door was open, it wasn't closing again. And just when the timeline talk was reaching a boiling point, another key piece of the puzzle took over the conversation: the Rooftop video. This was the clip authorities released, allegedly showing the suspect, Tyler Robinson, on top of a building shortly after the incident. It was meant to clear up confusion. Instead, it did the complete opposite. The short, blurry segment raised more questions than it answered, and the internet immediately started dissecting it frame by frame. Candace Owens became one of the loudest voices challenging the clip. She pointed out that Tyler reportedly had a leg issue that affected his movement, and the person in the video appeared to move with speed and mobility that didn't match that description. Supporters began comparing older footage of Tyler walking with the motions seen in the Rooftop clip. Side-by-side edits flooded social media, with users slowing down frames, analyzing the gait, the posture, even the height and build of the figure in the video. For many, the clip didn't prove anything, it only created more doubt. Critics of Candace argued she was reaching, grasping at details that could have logical explanations: video quality, camera angle, adrenaline, or simply misidentification. They claimed she was turning a tragic situation into a viral theory without solid evidence. But her supporters pushed back, saying if the video was meant to provide clarity, it should have been released in full with context and multiple angles, not as a short, selectively edited snippet. The real issue wasn't just whether the figure was Tyler or not. It was the way the footage was released. Many felt it looked curated, as if the public was being guided toward a specific conclusion rather than being given the full picture to decide for themselves. And once people start feeling like they're being handled, trust drops fast. But the most emotionally charged moment, the one that truly divided people, wasn't a leak, a clip, or a timeline issue. It was Erika Kirk's public tribute to Charlie. The video spread everywhere, and reactions were intense from both sides. Erika spoke about forgiveness and grace, expressing compassion toward the alleged perpetrator in a way that many found surprising so soon after such a traumatic loss. She remained composed, calm, and remarkably steady throughout the tribute. To some viewers, Erika's reaction was admirable. They saw her faith, her strength, and her refusal to let anger consume her as a sign of deep character. They praised her for choosing forgiveness instead of fueling outrage. Comments flooded in saying she embodied spiritual maturity and emotional resilience during a devastating time. But others felt unsettled. They expected grief, raw emotion, or at least visible discomfort. Instead, they saw poise, and for many, it felt rehearsed rather than natural. What really amplified the skepticism was a moment when Erika referred to Michael McCoy, the Turning Point USA Chief of Staff, using a casual nickname, Mikey, while speaking publicly about her late husband. For some, this was a harmless slip, a moment of familiarity during a difficult speech. But for others, it felt strangely intimate and poorly timed. Viewers questioned why someone so close to Charlie would be mentioned with warmth and levity during what should have been a solemn tribute centered solely on her husband's memory. That one detail spread quickly across social media, with many saying it didn't sit right. Supporters argued people were overanalyzing an emotional moment, while critics claimed the tone suggested a level of comfort that felt out of place. Whether genuine grace or strategic composure, Erika's tribute became a turning point, shifting the conversation from facts to perception, and perception is powerful. And while the tribute stirred emotional debate, the conversation took a sharper turn once people began looking at what happened next. Specifically, the power dynamics inside Turning Point USA after Charlie's passing. Online discussions raised a question that made many people pause. Who benefited from the silence, and who stepped into the spotlight as the dust settled? Almost immediately, viewers noticed that Erika appeared to adopt a more visible and influential role. She began speaking on behalf of Charlie's legacy, posting polished statements, and appearing in media as the face of grief, healing, and continuation. To some, this was perfectly natural. She was his wife, after all, and many believed she was simply honoring his vision and carrying it forward. But others found the transition surprisingly swift, almost as if a new narrative was ready to roll out before the public had processed what happened. Then there was Michael McCoy, the Mikey mentioned in Erika's tribute. His name kept surfacing in conversations and online threads, with people noticing how central he suddenly seemed in communications and organizational decisions. Some viewers suggested he stepped into a gatekeeper role around information, messaging, and public responses. Critics argued that the organization moved forward at remarkable speed, with very little visible urgency to demand deeper answers or push for full transparency. Supporters of TPUSA dismissed the speculation, saying the organization had a responsibility to remain stable and functional, especially during a leadership crisis. They claimed that stepping up quickly was necessary, not suspicious. But skeptics argued that the efficiency and coordination felt less like shock and recovery and more like a prepared transition. Whether viewed as professionalism or opportunism, the shift in influence sparked new questions. Was the silence about protecting grief or protecting control? And once that question entered the conversation, it became nearly impossible to ignore. Just when the internet thought it had seen everything, A new twist surfaced that sent people into full detective mode. Online users began claiming there was a longer version of the rooftop footage, one that briefly showed a woman near the alleged suspect before he left the scene. According to those who said they saw it early on, the clip didn't stay online for long. It was shared, reposted, then suddenly disappeared across platforms. That was all it took for the mystery woman theory to explode. People started digging through saved files, archived posts, and screen recordings, trying to prove the clip existed. Some swore they heard a female voice in the background, others claimed they saw a handoff of an object. Critics said it was nothing more than internet imagination filling gaps. But for many, the idea that footage could appear, then vanish, only made the situation feel more controlled than transparent. With leaks, questions, missing footage, and conflicting interpretations, one thing is undeniable: this situation has left more confusion than clarity. Supporters of Erika believe she's handling grief with grace, protecting her family, and refusing to fuel chaos. Critics argue her calm, her silence, and the speed of the organizational shift raise valid questions that deserve answers. Joe Rogan's involvement amplified the conversation, and Candace Owens' persistence ensured it didn't fade. At this point, the public isn't demanding drama, they're asking for transparency. A full, consistent explanation could calm everything instantly. But until that happens, speculation will continue to fill the gaps. So here's the real question: was this simply a tragic moment followed by miscommunication, or is there more beneath the surface than anyone has acknowledged?